Hello, everyone. We've got a great crowd today. Thanks for joining us. My name is Heather, and this is an Astro Partner Education session. So we have Proper joining us today. We have Justin and, oh my goodness, I just blanked on your name, Nick. There we go, Nick and Justin. Okay. Unfortunately, Justin's sound, we tested it, we could not get it to work. So Nick's going to do all the talking. Justin's going to have to trust him. So I'll let you two say a little bit more about who you are, and then we'll dive into the deck.
I'm Nick Massey. I'm the National Sales Manager at Proper Insurance. And then because Justin sounds so terrible, he's in charge of all of our marketing and corporate sponsorship stuff. So Justin, gets us involved in these organizations. And then from the insurance knowledge side, that's where I come in.
Yeah, unfortunately, his mic is pretty bad. So we're going to spare you from the robotic back noise. But he'll be active in the chat. So, all right, we're going to jump into our deck here. Share my screen. Can you see everything okay, Nick?
Yeah, I got it.
All right. Okay, great. So first, for those of you that don't know about the Association for Short-Term Rental Homeowners, I did want to take a second to review who we are and why we're here. And then we'll turn it over to Proper to share a little bit more about themselves. I think some of you may be familiar with both of us, but we're just going to take a second for those of you who are new in interacting with both of us. So Astro is a 501c6 not-for-profit. We are the Association for Short-Term Rental Homeowners, and we are a professional society focused on education. So we are not a trade association focused on regulatory affairs. But we work with organizations that take the lead on those efforts, and our goal is to provide education around how to get involved or just things that are happening and hot topics. But the core of what we do is to provide education across everything needed for a homeowner of a short-term rental. So whether you're in the investment stage or you already own a home or more than one home and you're managing it yourself. And then the third type of homeowner is someone who owns a home but has questions about a property manager, property management companies, and working with them and what should be in a contract, things like that. So here's just an example. If you haven't been to our website, this is our public-facing website. We provide blog content, other helpful articles or resources, and then this business directory of companies that support technology or services for short-term rental homeowners. Once you're a member, here's what you see. The community is, a more robust way of talking to other homeowners and reaching experts, and it's organized in a way you can dive deep on a certain topic. And this is where you can join courses. You'll see here in the bottom left. And courses are free to members and run by experts in that area. And then just a little bit more, our goal is to work across the industry. So other associations, like you see here on the left, just overall lodging associations. As a short-term rental homeowner, you're a critical stakeholder in the lodging industry. And that's how we view the world. And our goal is to make sure, we're talking to other associations and stakeholders and making that known. Moving to the right, you see here educational institutions. We're really excited, actually, we're working closely with Penn State, and they're committed to writing a research paper on our space, which is really exciting. The hospitality schools are seeing short-term rental as an area that they need to support too. And then you may be in an area where you have a locally focused association. Our goal is to support those local organizations as much as we can. Many of them are born out of regulatory need, and there are many of those. So this is just one example here on the slide. And then obviously advocacy, thought leadership, and media. So with that, that's who Astro is. I'm going to turn it over to Proper. Thank you so much. Proper's been an amazing sponsor and partner, and we really appreciate all the work they've done to provide this content today and to put themselves out there, because we do have some pretty tough questions we plan to throw their way. So with that, I'll hand it over to you, Nick.
Thank you. Yeah, excited to be part of Astro, excited to be here talking with everybody. See some of you, I see a comment in here, sunny Florida. I don't know if you can see this ridge line behind me. There's mountains right behind that. They're covered in snow. So a little chilly here in Bozeman, Montana this morning. A little bit about Proper Insurance. Proper Insurance was founded back in 2014, wanting and needing to specialize in this space for vacation rentals. As we've all dealt with insurance in the past, there's gaps in insurance coverage. And the primary focus here was to develop a program filling those particular gaps and satisfying the needs of risks that are involved with vacation rentals. And those are a few of the things that we're going to go over today. Since then, we have written over 40,000 policies nationwide to date, secured partnerships with companies like VRBO and other major leaders in the space as a comprehensive replacement for your current homeowner's insurance. As you can see on this just quick slide here, we provide a commercial liability product, commercial property and homeowners protections, income, bed bugs, liquor liability. If you want to jump over to the next slide real quick. Some of our quick policy highlights for those of you who don't know who we are. It's best considered a commercial homeowners insurance policy, which, little secret, it's not an actual thing. It's just the easiest way to describe the type of coverage that we write. So it's designed to fully replace your current homeowner's insurance. It's covering 4 coverage areas: your building, your contents, your liability, and any revenue losses that happen from a claim. Special cause of loss, very simply, that's the highest level of insurance protection that you can buy in the United States, meaning fewer exclusions. Everything is done on a replacement cost form, which is new for old, which is good. Liability starts at $1 million per occurrence. We do have increased liability options available. Our income protection is written on actual sustained loss, which is better than loss of rents, which, if you were to pull out your insurance policy, you might see a line item loss of rents. Actual sustained business income does not take into consideration fair market value or any type of averages. It is your actual loss of income based on your actual calendar of bookings in the event of a claim to pay you out. Yeah, next one real quick. Special enhancements that we provide that you're not going to find on any other policies. Again, this is just bringing in that comprehensive nature of what we've designed here. Bed bug coverage, believe it or not, one of the more popular claims. I'd say we probably file a bed bug claim about once every week. Liquor liability, call me crazy, people drink on vacation, so you want to make sure you have coverage for in the event that there's an alcohol involved claim at your property. We cover various amenities for liability as well, non-licensed golf carts. So if you live in a golf community or a beach community where golf carts are a means of transportation, but not licensed for road use, we provide liability coverage. Animals and pets, liquor, pools, hot tubs, exercise equipment, bicycles, small watercraft like canoes and kayaks, and much more. We have no limitations or exclusions for damage caused by a guest. That would clearly be something you want to make sure you have coverage for when you're buying a short-term rental insurance policy. So no limitations or exclusions there. And then with the bed bugs, we cover not just bed bug liability, but also bed bug extermination and loss of income involved with that as well. So those are just the kind of quick what is, who we are, what we do. Obviously, at the end of this, if you're looking to get some more information, don't hesitate to call and reach out to us. And we'd love to have a chat with you and answer any questions we don't get to on this today.
Thanks, Nick. Yeah, I know we have your contact information at the end. As I go through these next set of questions, there may be questions in the chat. So if you, I actually can't see them as I'm presenting. If we miss them, we'll leave time at the end to make sure we get as many questions as we can that are coming up in the chat. So one thing that came to mind, actually, just staying on this last slide, the difference between on-site versus off-site. So are you saying too that if a guest is using a bicycle anywhere in the area and they're injured versus if I have a basketball hoop on my property and the guest is injured?
Correct.
More about that different on-site, off-site? Yeah,
and sorry, I might have just kind of missed that on the note there. But or cameras or video covers it up. So our liability, specific to our liability protection, it extends off your premises. So everybody thinks about the classic slip and fall in the bathtub or down your stairs or on your porch or in a gopher hole in your yard, whatever it might be. But your renters do not just stay on your property 24/7. And you want to make sure you have protections when they're off your property line. So most of the vacation rental properties that we see, whether they're waterfront or even in condo communities, there's bicycles, there's things like that that you provide as an amenity for that person to use to enjoy their stay. So quite technically, that liability is in place during the time of booking anywhere in the United States. So your guest books your property in Washington and does something in Idaho and you're tied into the lawsuit, you still quite technically have coverage provided.
That's really helpful. Thanks. Really interesting. I know a few of our members, this came up actually when we talked about adding amenities to a home to be able to charge higher rates. But then this is good to think through, depending on the amenities you're adding, do you have the right coverage? So that it's the tie together to that other conversation we were having. Okay, so these were some questions. We tried to just go through common questions and kind of lump them into categories. So this first one is, if you have a damage waiver that you charge or a security deposit, and then you also obviously have this homeowner insurance or commercial homeowner insurance. If you have all of them, what's the difference? Or when do I charge the guest, maybe don't let them have their deposit back, versus when do I make a claim?
Yeah, so everybody should have their homeowner's insurance, whether it's with Proper or with another company, it doesn't matter. You should have homeowner's insurance because that's where you get liability protection. Damage waivers are good. If you use a professional property management company, or maybe you set that up yourself, you have a few homes in your personal network. Damage waivers are good. You take $89 a booking or $100 a booking, and you're putting that away into a slush fund to cover these small incidentals. That's great. Security deposits work as well. With your homeowner's insurance, you always have a deductible, right? So the damage has to exceed that deductible before you can file a claim, whether it's 500, 1,000, 5,000, 10,000. You'll want to take a look at your insurance policy on what that number is. But you're not going to be able to file a homeowner's insurance claim unless it exceeds that deductible first. So if you have a $2,500 deductible and a $500 damage from a guest, that's when you're going to fall back on your security deposits or your damage waivers before involving your homeowner's insurance company for that type of loss.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Kind of gets people thinking through, looking at all of these to decide if they're charging a security deposit, what should they charge, versus if they're standing up their own little damage waiver program, kind of an extra fee to put into that slush fund, as you called it. Okay, yeah, I don't know if there's any other thoughts on that in the chat on this one.
I mean, I would say that most of the clients that we deal with are single property owners. They're not, yeah, we have clients who have multiple properties, but a majority are single property owners. And, managing damage waivers or managing security deposits can be difficult, right? And then you get into the fighting with guests and stuff like that. No, I didn't break that, fighting with, keeping that credit card damage or security deposit, essentially. So we do talk to a lot of folks who say, I just keep $5,000 in a savings account to cover the small things, and then if something happens, I'll file a homeowner's insurance claim at that point in time. Water damage, roof damage, vandalism, theft, that's pretty sizable. So that's just another option too. Maybe avoiding the damage waiver, additional security deposit, and just having a slush fund. That's another option you could always think about.
No, that's a really good point. And insurance is one of these items as a short-term rental homeowner, regardless of whether you have your home just fully managed by a property management company, it really is on you to make sure you have the right insurance. Mm-hmm. So unless you would call out, is there a difference there for some reason that I would think about insurance differently if I'm self-managing versus if I'm using a property management company?
Yeah, property management companies usually partner with other insurance companies who are a third party administrator for the damage waiver stuff. So I book a property through No Madness Vacation Rentals. I might pay $89 for a damage waiver versus going through somebody who's a private individual and they say that they're going to withhold $1,000 on my credit card until after I check out for damages. So yeah, if you're using a professional manager, you probably have a damage waiver or a security deposit. Again, I would assume most everybody has a system for this, but regardless of what you're doing, I mean, to keep on track with the conversation of insurance, you still need to verify that your homeowner's insurance, property coverage, and liability is correct for the activity you're conducting at your space.
Yeah, no, that was really helpful.
Yeah, it's not one of the three. You can have all three of these going, but at the very worst, you at least need to have homeowners insurance. That's the right stuff.
And understanding, even if you do, right, at what point do you say, no, this does qualify as a claim? So you understand clearly based on what coverage you have when you would do that.
Yeah, I mean, be absolutely direct with what your intentions are with your property with anybody you're talking to about insurance. You don't want to misrepresent or hide anything.
And of course, if questions come up, we can come back, on this category.
Yeah.
I'll keep going for now. This one is interesting, and I think this is just a question of, well, Airbnb host protection exists, and VRBO $1 million liability insurance exists. Is this enough, or how does this complement what I need for my homeowner's insurance?
Yeah, question we get every single day on the phone.
Okay.
And so, listen, I'm not going to say that Airbnb or VRBO's free insurance is not there and does not pay out. There's plenty of data that supports that they pay some claims. I highly encourage everybody to do their own independent research. I feel you'll find a lot more negative press around these than positive. I myself have had examples with my own clients who have had damage done and tried to make a claim and had no response or very limited response. One of which a client of mine had about $100,000 in damage done by guests to his property, and he was offered a check for around $20,000. So yeah, they responded, but they didn't really respond in full by any means. The other downside here is that these coverages are only in place during the time of booking. So if they were real legitimate insurance contracts with your name on it, they're only good when the property is booked. And back to needing the right type of homeowners and liability insurance in place to begin with, outside of the booking period, if you don't have the right insurance protection, your carrier can still deny a claim. Very prominent court case in California, Emily Richer versus Travelers, where a tree fell on her unoccupied rental and they declined the claim because she's operating a business activity and that business activity excluded from her coverage. Essentially, that's the basis of the exclusion and why her claim wasn't covered for the most part. Now, last I checked, this is still being fought in court. I believe it's in the Superior Court in California. So we'll see where it ends up going. But you cannot rely on these free insurances to protect you, and it just leads even further back coverage to make sure it's correct. If you use Airbnb and something happens and you need to file a claim, 100% file a claim with them, but you should also be filing a claim with your primary home carrier as well.
And so you're saying that these are so like if I opt in, or maybe I'm not even opting in, I just say, okay, Airbnb, VRBO, but is it also correct to say that if I took a booking on my direct website that I have through my PMS provider, that I wouldn't be covered by either of these because the booking didn't originate with one of them?
100%. Absolutely. Okay. Absolutely. The biggest thing is If you don't have a contract with your name on it outlining coverages with insurance on what is or what is not covered, do not rely on it. Okay, it's a fallback. It's there. It's part of the money you pay to use those services. But again, do your own independent research. I've never sold a free insurance policy in my career, so anything that has free and insurance in the same sentence, I'd be very mindful of.
But it's good to talk through that even if you have this, that you would need to keep track of where that guest originated their reservation too. That just adds kind of a layer.
Yeah, absolutely. And then again, it falls back to, so you go through your property manager and the booking's not through Airbnb or VRBO, and they have these fallback damage waivers, but everything trickles downhill. At the end of the day, the property needs to have its own insurance with that address specifically listed on the declarations page. It's great. These services are wonderful. We rely on Airbnb and VRBO heavily, and we love them for what they do, and we hate them for other things they do. It's just part of the industry that we're in. But don't think that this host protection or 1 million liability insurance provided by the booking platform is your sole needs for coverage in this realm.
Would another example be, well, I guess that's like you said, understanding what you get if you're choosing this, and just eyes wide open, right? Like know what you're getting with each thing and do the homework.
Yeah.
So, and some folks may have a good experience in working with one of these.
Yeah, I mean,
process.
If you have a broken lamp or busted TV or something small, I mean, I would say anything maybe sub 5,000, you see pretty positive response from the free insurance. It pays out. I'm definitely not saying it doesn't.
Yeah.
But definitely a biased feeling towards it, because we see with the clients firsthand who have these large losses and very little support that comes from the booking platform in those cases.
No, this is a really interesting conversation. It also, I think, ties to the next one where we talk about partial or on-demand insurance. So in addition to what Airbnb and VRBO are offering, which is, if you book the stay and the incident is tied to the stay through that channel, it can qualify. But there are other providers that seem to offer something similar, where I'm only maybe buying insurance for the nights I host a guest. And in that case, maybe it's still this kind of partial or on demand, but it's channel agnostic, because can you talk a little bit about the differences here with someone like that?
Yeah, definitely. We can touch on them. The two prominent carriers that were out there was a company called Slice and another company called Comet. And essentially, you bought insurance for the nights it was booked. So it's a supplemental policy that goes over your regular homeowner's insurance. Really, the only reason I feel you would be buying this is because the policy you have is not enough protection. So you go out and buy these. Unfortunately, I checked last night, those two carriers are no longer selling insurance. So it kind of leads us down the road of the supplemental policy. Either they had a lot of losses, which they probably did, because we have a lot of losses ourselves. We pay a lot of claims. And they weren't collecting enough premium. I want to say they were like $10 a night or something like that, $8 or $10 a night, and had some big losses that now they're no longer providing coverage, or maybe they're in a transitional phase. I don't really know. I just tried to buy insurance last night from them, and it said we're no longer providing. But they were a great option actually for the folks who didn't really rent out their properties a lot. If you went a family vacation once a year for 10 days, why spend 2 times insurance premium for a very robust insurance policy when you're only doing it 10 days a year and your risk is fairly limited, right? So they were a good option. People who only rent out their house during the Super Bowl or a large sporting event that comes to town once a year, like the Masters. But there were great options to get an additional supplementary coverage on top.
Well, thanks, Nick, for fact checking that, doing some homework on this question too before the session. We had that kind of on our directory. Let's do a few of the company names you mentioned there. This is an interesting space to watch because maybe based on that, there really isn't another provider where you could get this today. If you know, but will there be another one, or will they start offering it again? I guess it'll be interesting to watch.
Yeah, it's definitely the tech side of insurance. There's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes with insure tech, as we're calling it. But it seems to be that the old school methods of insurance continue to prevail, especially in a budding tech space like vacation rentals. But like I said, they were a great option for the folks who did the limited amount of stays in a year. Were very, not in this for business, or not in this for trying to rent out their property 100, 200, 300 nights a year. So it would be good to see someone come back into that space to fill that particular need in the market.
So yeah, interesting conversation then. We'll keep watching the space. So then the policy options, for other types of insurance, we see ads all the time that say, well, if you're accident free, you get discounts, or there's a way to like save money on your insurance. What can folks expect related to savings or benefits in this space?
So every insurance carrier and underwriter, they address discounts differently, whether it's you've been claims free, you have a fire hydrant right next to your house, the year of construction, the age of the roof, renovation periods, things like that. So there's always options for discounts. When you look at a commodity insurance, and what I mean by commodity insurance is going to be your Allstates, your Nationwides, your State Farms, et cetera. They all sell the same home and auto products, and they're constantly competing for business based on price, right? So they're going to be offering a lot of discounts. The issue with that is cheap insurance is not really good insurance. And when you move into a specialty market and not a standard commodity market, remember, vacation rentals make up 1% of the housing industry. So you really need to be focusing on coverage more than price in this space. The carriers, including ourselves, that are very similar in coverage product are going to be pretty similar in overall price. And then it comes down to certain bells and whistles that you might be looking for with your risk management plan. I would be wary of, I'm buying insurance for my vacation rental in Florida. I live in Colorado. My Colorado insurance agent is giving me a bundled discount for my vacation rental in Florida. You're probably not getting the right aspect of coverage. You probably have some coverage or a little bit of coverage. I'm not saying you don't, but be wary of inexpensive insurance in a specialty market that we play in. Again, we're 1% of the housing market. The discount-driven insurance policy, the commodity insurance, is competing over the other 99%.
That's a really interesting point. We frame this question around accident-free, but how many homeowners, that is their first kind of thought is, well, I'm going to go to my insurance provider for other things, and they may say, sure, let me offer this for you, right? The example you gave about you live in Colorado and have the Florida home. What would you say are the watchouts there? Because people on this call might say, well, I have insurance, and I've bundled it through an insurance provider I've used for years. What are some additional questions they should ask?
Personal opinion, bundling is the great insurance marketing scheme to get
coming from an insurance guy.
So in full disclosure, Proper sells one product, so we don't want to bundle anything. So we're not going to take you down that path. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff to look out for when buying insurance for a vacation rental, and we'll probably touch on these again in some other slides down.
Yeah, we can keep moving, I think.
I'll stay
here for now.
Do you have premises liability versus commercial liability? Does it define the property as being your residence premise? Does it say occasional rental? Who gets to define occasional when something happens? Does that mean 7 days, 100 days, 30 days? So you need to be mindful of that type of stuff. It's always important to ask your agent to get answers from the underwriter. Now, an insurance agent can tell you anything over the phone. I can tell you right now that, flooding is covered. Well, flooding is covered under a flood insurance policy, but is it covered under the coverage I just bought or not? You need to get that stuff in writing from an underwriter. So you need to be asking questions like, if I entrust my property to a guest for 3 days and they vandalize my home, am I covered, and to what limit? Because some of these policies actually, they would have sub-limits on some of these items. If I entrust my property to a short-term paying guest and they assault my neighbor or their dog bites my neighbor, do I have coverage? You need to get those questions from the underwriter. If somebody is quoting your property and they're not looking at your online listing, how are they really underwriting and providing the right type of insurance policy for your specific advertisement, right? So I know there's a question further down in here, and we'll go over stuff again. Okay. But you know,
we just kind of jump ahead. Sorry about
that. Yeah, it's not about saving money in this space, and it's trust me, I don't like spending money on my own insurance. I got 3 cars and a house and toys and kids and life insurance and all of this stuff, and it's expensive. I'm on your side. I get in arguments with my insurance agent all the time about how much I pay for insurance. But in the vacation rental space, it's a totally different animal. The exposure is way different. This is not a long-term rental. This is not a residence premises in most cases. A lot of times it's your second home, and you have a lot of money invested here. And you really need to make sure you have the right type of insurance policy to fit your specific needs.
Thanks. Yeah, no, and like you said, we'll kind of come back to this one in a minute. This next question is a little different. Maybe ties to some of the chat. You know, crisis management is this big bucket of, are we talking about COVID, which is this, global pandemic we're all in and we've had, we've seen an impact, or is it I'm dealing with a slip and fall and I'm getting sued? So this is a pretty broad question. How much support should I expect from my insurance provider if I get sued by a guest for falling, getting injured, et cetera? Or is it, crisis management because I've lost revenue due to a natural disaster? If you could talk about both of those.
Yeah, so let's start on liability. I mean, arguably the largest exposure as a homeowner. And I got some comments here. Can somebody give me a thumbs up here? You can hear me? Are we doing okay there?
Yeah.
On
the line.
Yeah, there's a comment about, so I'll try and speak up a little. But so liability, you get sued, arguably the biggest exposure we have as property owners, okay? Because lawyers are expensive. So as far as how much support can you expect from any insurance company, it comes down to whether or not the claim is covered or excluded, okay? If you have a coverage that is, or you think you have coverage and it's excluded, you can expect little to no support from your insurance company because they don't cover that, okay? And one thing that every insurance company out there that I know of doesn't cover is viruses, right? So on the term of pandemic, if something is excluded in your contract, you simply aren't going to have protections for it, okay? And so we cover liquor liability. A competitor of ours does not. There's an alcohol-related claim at your property. Who's going to provide legal and financial support in that lawsuit and settlement? The company that does not have an exclusion for that particular item when it happens, okay? So again, you need to be verifying your insurance. You need to understand what coverage you have. You need to have really detailed conversations with an agent that you're speaking with in this space to understand what the coverage entails and what is and what is not protected. And that's going to let you know where you're going to get support, where you're not going to get support if something were to happen. Fewer exclusions always means more coverage. So the policy with fewer exclusions is going to provide more support for you at the end of the day. So insurance providers defend their clients and cover causes of loss. And then most insurance policies are going to provide X amount of liability coverage in a dollar amount. And then your legal defense is provided above and beyond that limit of insurance. So if we have $1 million limit of insurance with Proper, we are getting sued for $1 million. and we have $500,000 in legal fees, that $1 million coverage is there to pay any settlement. That additional $500,000 is funded by the carrier. And that's the case with our insurance policy that we sell, and with most insurance providers out there. As far as the virus, there was a question earlier about things with shutdowns due to coronavirus. So to just kind of segue that here, it's not covered. It's an excluded item. Insurance policies haven't covered viruses or pandemics since 2006. Zika, they just haven't covered it. So just because you're shut down, you need to have. Let me back up a little bit. You need to have physical property damage before loss of revenue pays out. Okay, so you need to have vandalism, you need to have roof damage, you need to have water damage. There needs to be something, a bang, something that happened that is causing you to not be able to occupy your property. A government shutdown due to a virus, as decided by courts recently in 5 states, and we'll see these come up in more and more states as time goes on, is the virus is not physical or tangible damage to property, thus business income response does not apply if you have that coverage on your policy. Some of us have insurance policies that don't have business income, so you wouldn't have anything anyways. Some of us have loss of rents, some of us have business income, like I'm mentioning, and it's just not something that we're seeing as being covered. And it could come down to a decision in the Supreme Court where they decide to redefine virus as being physical property damage to homes. And if that were to ever happen, then everything going on right now would completely reverse, and insurance providers would be held to the standard to respond to those policies. You know, your State Farms, your Nationwides, your Lloyd's of London, your Philadelphia Insurance Company, you name them, would all have to go back and take care of those claims accordingly.
So staying on this a little bit, just playing out some other scenarios, you know, contracts can have the clause force majeure, you know, which covers like social unrest, other natural disasters. So just to go a little bit deeper on that kind of concept, and COVID and a global pandemic in comparison to Zika, even taking that out, right, taking that out of the bucket because it's just this, you know, insane, unique moment in the world. But there are things like natural disasters, right, that are very localized and will always happen. And so just to play out a scenario of, so if there's a hurricane, obviously if the home is damaged, there are certain protocols and making sure you're covered. But let's say a scenario of there's a hurricane, so that means roads are closed. My home isn't damaged, but because of the natural disaster, I now have to cancel the next 2 weeks of bookings because I literally can't get to my home. How does that, could we talk about that one a little bit? Some of those kinds of scenarios?
Yeah, so again, comes down to whether or not you have it as a covered cause of loss. In hurricane, they're called CAT areas, catastrophic locations. So the Gulf, for example, you have the option to buy insurance with or without that coverage. If you exclude wind, and wind results in that loss that you're explaining, you have no coverage. You have excluded wind as a cause of loss. Now, let's say you do. The type of coverage that you're explaining there is something called civil authority. In civil authority is coverage in place to pay up to 90 days of lost business income in the event that a covered cause of loss prohibits access to your property without actually causing damage to your property. Okay, so usually with mandatory evacuation, so a mandatory evacuation is going to be civil authority, right? And a civil authority with hurricanes, usually 72, maybe a little bit longer, 72 hours plus. You have to pay a deductible for any loss before the insurance company kicks in. When we're talking about hurricane areas, we're talking minimum deductibles of around $10,000. So you would have to lose that $10,000 from the start date, mandatory evacuation, to you can now come back to your property. you have no damage. If you haven't satisfied the deductible for the cause of loss, in this case, wind, you're not going to file a claim. It's like having $1,000 deductible and trying to file a claim on a $500 couch. Think about forest fire, right? So fire is a cause of loss on all home insurance policies. If you have income protections and you have civil authority language in your policy, a forest fire mandatory evacuation is much longer than a hurricane one, right? And you could have the house on the top of the hill, no access. Your house doesn't have any fire, but fire is a covered cause of loss, no fire damage to your home, but you had 30 days of lost income. You're easily probably going to exceed your standard deductible and would be able to file a claim, something we see quite often in California, Colorado, Utah, et cetera. So to kind of segue back into here, because Carol Ann has this other great question. So when the government ordered to stay at home, that wouldn't be civil authority. And again, no, because the stay at home order was not due to tangible physical property damage to your home or surrounding homes, like a hurricane or a fire or something of that nature. And that's where these courts in these various states have decided. So you can definitely do your own research. I want to say it was New York, DC, Michigan, New Jersey, Wisconsin, I believe. And more states will be coming out with their court decisions and be guiding their insurance commissioners on how to respond to those. And as an insurance agency, we have no authority on the matter. But what the insurance commissioners and the state authorities decide on that with policy definition is what our carrier is going to have to abide by.
Another interesting scenario, and I think this was more in the beginning of COVID, was a travel ban from country to country. So if you had an international guest who was, flying here, and suddenly a travel ban from that country to the U.S. went into effect, the guest could not get here. Mm-hmm. Do you mind talking about that one a little bit? Like if it's a kind of a ban of the guest to get.
It comes down to loss of market.
Yeah.
Nobody covers loss of market. Our market was lost. We lost our market as an insurance company. We weren't selling new business. Nobody was opening up vacation rentals.
That's not civil authority. That would be loss of market.
No, absolutely. Let's take Aspen, Colorado, for example. And you just spent all this money setting up your vacation rental business in Aspen, hoping for a great ski year, and it doesn't snow. That is not insurable. You lost your market. The market there is snow. It didn't snow. That's the way it is. Our market as a whole is travelers. The virus stopped people from being able to travel. We lost our market. That's the real short answer on all of it, really.
Well, and I guess maybe then, not that this is your area, but then it comes down to what was the cancel policy, right? And then do you allow that guest to rebook and keep a credit versus do you just and then you're dealing with like what was actual cancel policy on the reservation itself?
Yeah.
When did they actually?
Yeah, and that's not our wheelhouse, definitely. Yeah. And we all have our own opinions with how that should have been handled by the booking platforms. That's an after work beer conversation.
Oh no, yeah, right. Like regardless if it was direct with you or through channel, who's merchant of record, right? All of that has the power to make the call. Yeah.
Deb, hi Deb. That's one of our clients, Deb Fussell. Great question. How about forest fires, smoke damage, and civil unrest? Fire and stuff resulting from fire is never excluded. I mean, it's the number one primary coverage on property insurance. So if you have smoke damage from a fire, it's a covered cause of loss. Oh, and she adds, smoke issues that prevent guests from arriving. Again, that's going to be loss of market. I decided not to travel to your home because I have asthma and it's very smoky. You're just going to have to deal with that with your own cancellation procedures. Civil unrest, again, only if there's mandatory evacuation or shutdown and you have coverage for riot and civil commotion. So riot and civil commotion is a special add-on to most insurance policies. Not all losses are responded to in the events of civil or civil unrest, riot, or civil commotion is how it's written. So they'll have to take a look at that. There's things that say, like in your insurance policy, this is excluded unless caused by, and then it'll say like fire, lightning, riot and civil commotion, and glass breakage, right? It'll list 4 things. And so that's something you'll want to look for in your insurance policy on if, especially those of you who are in those regions that are have been experiencing the riots, you'll want to make sure you have that coverage in your policy.
This is a very broad, and crisis management is, yeah, just really, it was helpful to go deep on this detail. I don't know if there are other questions out there. If folks did want to ask more questions about anything here, do you have a place that folks can go? I know you have a lot of blog content. I did want to keep moving on, but I felt like there were some more questions on this one.
Yeah, Justin has done a great job with our YouTube page. We always post these on there. There's an 1.5 hour long webinar and Q&A with Justin Ford from Breezeway on insurance and safety.
Mm-hmm.
We have some short clips on there, Ask Proper Anything, which are just quick 1-minute videos. Our blog, we're posting daily, I'm pretty sure. We've been busy in the office, so I haven't really kept up with it. But if you go to our website and go to our blog, tons of information ranging from regulations to safety stuff to these insurance questions that you guys are all asking right now. We're more than an insurance company. We really pride ourselves on being an education source and an insurance provider at the same time.
And just also to clarify, do you provide insurance only to homes located within the U.S.?
Yes, just within the 50 United States.
So that does take us to final thoughts. We kind of started together already and talk about, what's the most important thing you should do to make sure you have the best insurance to fit your needs. We started to touch on this a little bit earlier, but is there something you want to say to kind of sum it up? Yeah,
I think the best thing for anybody is to understand what you are and what you aren't comfortable with paying out of pocket. Okay. And think large losses. I would say think within the $10,000 range. If you're okay paying up to $10,000 for guest-related damages, then these standardized home sharing endorsements are probably fine for you because they are limited in scope and what they pay out. If you are offering a lot of amenities like we talked about, you really need to be thinking about higher level liability protection and not just buying liability and then buying an umbrella. You need to know what is and what is not covered. And if those amenities that you provide are specifically part of the scope of coverage. Everybody has a different risk tolerance and a different flavor for what they want to pay for insurance in exchange for the protections that they receive. So it first starts with you, the consumer, on breaking down a quick list on what is important to you with your vacation rental, okay, and what you want to be covered and how you need liability. I'm a lakefront property. I want to make sure my dock and boats, I have liability extended to me. We'll definitely make sure you don't buy premises liability because it doesn't extend off your property line. Right, and those are conversations for you to have with my team, and conversations for you to have with your current insurance agent. And you need to make that decision as an educated consumer on what risk management plan is best for your needs. If you are in the boat of I want as much as possible covered with as little out of my pocket as possible, give us a call. We want to partner with you because that is exactly what Proper Insurance is in business to do. Still give us a call, get a 20 to 30 minute consultation with one of our agents here in the office, understand what our coverage entails, ask us very difficult questions that we love that, it makes our day, and figure out what's best for your particular situation. It's totally down to you, the consumer, and we want to do business with everybody, but we understand that our level of protection comes with a higher premium, and some people just don't want to exchange that much premium or transfer that much risk onto the insurance company. So go for it.
Oh, sorry, Nick. Yeah, one thing you said earlier I thought might be important to tie back to this question is there's so much technical insurance language, right? I wrote down civil authority, loss of market, right? And it starts to get technical, but what you said earlier, I think is a great kind of consumer approach is play out the scenarios. Ask the question, like, if I have a basketball hoop and this happens, am I covered? And like asking questions in that way, knowing like, here are my amenities, here's what I think my risk could be, am I covered? I'm in, a fire prone area or hurricane prone area. So that was really helpful, I thought, to break it down, since a lot of the terminology could be tough to remember exactly how to ask it from the technical standpoint.
Yeah, we have 3 questions or 4 questions to ask your insurance agent. They're along the lines of, if I entrust my property to a guest, am I covered if they maliciously damage my home? If I entrust my property to a guest and they slip and fall and are injured, do I have liability coverage? If I entrust my property to a guest and they vandalize or damage my neighbor's property, am I protected? And if I entrust my property to my guest and they cause an accident or injury off premises, am I covered? Those are very 4 important insurance questions in this space. They all relate to just about every single vacation rental advertised online. Those questions should be posed to an insurance agent with your online listing. If they're not underwriting your online listing, they don't have a clear view into what you're doing as a business, and that should be red flag number 1. When you're operating as a vacation rental, you want your agent to know what you're doing. Are you offering food? Do you have food liability? Are you offering third-party concierge services? Do you allow parties and events like weddings? Do you allow pets? Do you have life jackets? Do you have signage around your pool? Do you have X, Y, and Z? Those are all things that are found on your online listing. And again, if they're not asking or underwriting your online listing, they don't have a view into what you're doing to provide or curate the right type of insurance policy for you.
Yeah, this is great. I mean, that's even starting to get into, right, making your home safer. What are those basic things you can do to limit accidents, things like that? And that's a big focus of the association too, is to continue to bring more information related to that. What are the best practices around making sure your home is safe? So yeah, it's a good segue to talk about that too.
We're competing with, you guys are all competing with Hilton and Marriott and the resorts and and whomever, and they're all held to a higher standard with their business operation and hospitality. And the vacation rental space has been slowly moving through regulation and stuff like that, getting there. And insurance, unfortunately, has been incredibly slow to adapt. I would, in my personal opinion, I think proper insurance is 5 to 10 years ahead of the curve of the rest of the insurance field. So, it takes a long time for them to adapt and understand. And we're still in this phase where you might call your local insurance agent and they're selling you a regular homeowner's insurance policy or a landlord insurance policy for a long-term rental for your Airbnb VRBO property, which is it's fundamentally incorrect, unfortunately. Carol Ann with another great question. Do we have rental agreement templates? We're not lawyers, but I did steal some templates from Airbnb and VRBO. So I'd be happy to send those over if you want to give us an email.
Actually, if you don't mind sharing them, we can post them in the community too and make them available through Astro.
Yeah, because I just took them right off their website, so we can get those sent over. Those are from Airbnb and VRBO, their sample templates. From there, it's a building block, consult a lawyer. But yeah, you should have a rental agreement.
Okay, I think with that, just wrapping up how to get more information. I'll let you speak to this slide, Nick. Wrap it up.
Yeah, absolutely. You can go to our website, proper.insure. There's no .com because we're super fancy, I guess. So www.proper.insure. Go to our website, a lot of great information on there. Take your time, read through the info. We've got a lot of stuff on there. You can also call us at 888-631-6680. That's our primary number. Phone numbers all over the website as well, so you can get in touch with us. You can always email property details if you don't want to go through the online quote to info@proper.insure, and we'll get you in touch with the right insurance agent for your property address to discuss.
That's great. Thanks.
Justin had it here. I did. Steve Van Glider. Hope I said that right. Loss assessment coverage. Loss assessment coverage is provided with a condo association setup where it's to cover those losses like storm damages or fires or sprinkler system leakage, things like that your association paid for. We offer that on condos at a limit of $10,000 with a $0 deductible. Pretty sure it's zero. I'll have to double check. Oh, another one. Justin's hit me here. Ricky Cortez, what are liquor-related things to be aware of that other policies would not cover? Great question. It's not that you're offering a bottle of wine or some local beer or something like that. It's what does the guest bring and what do they potentially leave behind, right? So a lot of insurance is going to cover host liquor, okay? They're basically saying that they're going to allow you to give them a bottle of wine or that 6-pack of beer as a welcome gift. That's perfectly fine. But if I'm a bourbon drinker and I bring a bottle of bourbon or buy a bottle of bourbon and I stick it in the cabinet when I leave and it's not taken out or it's missed on cleaning day, that bottle of liquor has now been furnished by the rental, and that is not a bottle of wine or a 6-pack of beer, which is why we don't have an exclusion for it. If somebody were to grab that and drink it, get hurt someone, you would have liability protection on our policy for it. A total liquor liability exclusion is difficult for me to really portray what would be excluded, but it would just be safe to say that any accident involving liquor more or less would probably be declined because they have a total liquor liability exclusion. So definitely be worried for it. If you're concerned about liquor liability at your property, we're probably a good fit because we don't have an exclusion for it. Another question here, who is your top competitor? Our primary competitor has seemingly lost their carrier. Don't really want to go into that too much. If you're currently insured with them and you get a letter, definitely give us a call. But they are writing insurance through other policies. Berkshire Hathaway, All Risk is another carrier. Our biggest competitor is probably Foremost and American Modern. That's the one we see most commonly. Those are modified landlord insurance policies. They're not a commercial product. They do have their limitations with premises liability and not always removing the property entrustment exclusion. So if you have those policies, not saying that they're not good for what you're doing, but you can definitely give us a call to investigate potential upgrades. Deb with a question, as a host, what's the limit of alcohol that can be provided to guests and still covered under our insurance? We're definitely going to catch on if you're providing a full bar, and we'll probably ask you to stop doing that because that's just a lot of booze. I would say the best case scenario, the best thing to do is to limit yourself to 2 bottles of gifted wine. Outside of that, let the guests go and get their own alcoholic beverages from where they see fit. So not saying that's our limit, just saying that's probably the best case scenario. Limit yourself to no more than providing 2 bottles of wine. You do not want to be the inhibitor of their intoxication because that makes you solely liable for their actions.
That was really great. I know we're at time here. And in addition to how you contact Proper, here's how you can stay in touch with Astro and these types of partner education sessions and expert Q&As, and then the education we offer within the platform. is all available to our members within the platform, where we dive deeper on topics and do 1-week power courses and other education like this. We have open to all, and want to continue to provide this kind of valuable information to homeowners, the homeowner community. With that, I think I'll stop sharing the screen here and wrap up. Let's see if there's anything else. I think you did answer the last question, Nick.
Awesome. Yeah. Again, thank you for having us. We're very excited to be part of this association and to see it grow, and look forward to doing more of these in the near future.
Yeah, and we'll get Justin off his robotic voice for next time.
Yeah.
Participate. Thanks, you guys. Really appreciate it.
Okay. Right. Everybody have a great day. Call us with any questions.
And this video will be recorded for those that missed it, so on Facebook and on our site. Okay, thanks all. Good one. Bye.